Alaya. And thank you all for coming to the Bolinas Museum for hosting the Golden Decade show. I'm going to circle back to them in a little bit. Before I start, I want to let you know that there are two galleries in the exhibition. There's the main gallery, and then it continues in this small photo gallery, which features all 4x5 contact prints, which are all small and intimate, and it's a really different viewing experience, so make sure to check out both. And since there's a lot of text in the exhibition and a lot of explanation of the history of the school, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the people who are here and say some thank yous. Except to say that as an educator myself and someone who studied photography in the Bay Area with incredible teachers, it has been such a treat to make a show that really acknowledges the importance of teachers and teacher-student relationships and the long-term communities that are formed in programs like this. The importance of these communities to the development of photography as an art form that could be taken seriously in the mid-20th century cannot be overstated. There just weren't that many people doing this kind of work at this level. They needed each other to make exhibitions, to publish books and magazines like Aperture, and to build a dialogue and a language around photography and what it could do and mean to culture. And it just so happens that the teacher at the California School of Fine Arts were also some of the household names in photography even back then. Ansel Adams started the program. Minor White was the director and taught the majority of the classes. Dorothea Lange taught there, Edward Weston, Lisette Modell, Homer Page. And I think the work of the students speaks for itself. So please take it all in and enjoy. And again, I want to spend a little time acknowledging the key people that are here today, including, I think we have 4 or 5 of the photographers here right now. We've got David Johnson, who just arrived, Charles Wong, Gerald Brotto, also just arrived, over there. Dan Zernick, I believe, is coming but has not arrived yet, and John Upton, we'll see if he gets here. As you know, there was like a cement truck overturned on Sir Francis Drake, which might have held people back, but please take an opportunity to say hello to them if you get a chance. And then just a moment to acknowledge some of the people we've lost in the past several years, whose families some of them are here and have really continued their legacies and are indispensable to us seeing their work. William Hike, Benjamin Chinn, Ira Latour, Zoe Lowenthal Brown, Cameron McCauley.
She's still alive.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Okay, that's embarrassing. Okay, still with us. Thank goodness. Okay, now we all know. My apologies. Leonard Zalaskowitz. I'm not going to name them all, but you'll. There's been so much effort by so many people over the years to keep this work alive and circulating and inspiring people. This is just one iteration of many exhibitions that have taken place over the past 10 years. So I'm just going to try to do it quickly, acknowledge some other key people who have contributed. First and foremost, not foremost, but first, maybe, I don't know, Ken Ball and Victoria Whiteball. Yay! Right in the back there. It's hard to know even where to start with these two. Victoria is the daughter of Don White, who was a student at the CSFA in those first 10 years, and 70% of the works in the show came from Ken and Victoria. They also produced the Golden Decade book, which was published by Steidl in 2016. A huge effort, labor of love, countless hours. And the book was originally started by Cameron McCauley, William Hike, and Ira Latour. They weren't able to finish it, so Ken and Victoria took all the material from them and really pushed to pull it all together, and spent at least 2 trips to Germany with Steidl composing the book, and it is just beautiful. just timepiece, and we're so lucky to have it. So please have a look at it in the gallery. And if you want to buy a copy and get it signed by a couple of photographers today, this is a great opportunity. So Ken and Victoria, I mean, there's so much more to say. They create gatherings, put on many exhibitions, but please say hello to them. David Johnson and Jacqueline Sue, who just arrived. So in 1945, David wrote a personal letter to Ansel Adams from Jacksonville, Florida, which was still segregated at the time, after seeing an ad in the back of a magazine, I believe, asking for a place in the program. And Ansel initially said there was no room, but as soon as a place opened up, he wrote back to David and told him to come out. So David arrived in San Francisco in 1945 at the age of 18 with no formal training in photography, and stayed with Ansel at his house until he could find his own accommodations. At the school, he began documenting the Fillmore district and the jazz culture blossoming there in the 40s and 50s. He also became an important documentarian of the civil rights movement, and some of his work is now in the Library of Congress, and his archive is at the Bancroft Library in Berkeley. In more recent news, San Francisco Parks and Recreation named the photo processing lab at the Harvey Milk Photo Center for David, and created a photo reference library and reading space in the lobby in his honor. And thanks to Jacqueline Sue also for making that happen. So Jerry and Marlo Ratto are back there. Jerry's iconic image, Children of the Fillmore, number 19, graces the cover of the Golden Decade book and has been a central image for almost every exhibition of the work. It is that good. His extremely sensitive and playful images of urban life and children have become so iconic because they so beautifully capture the spirit of that time period in San Francisco. He's also been a working photographer his whole career, which is an achievement in itself. And thank you to Marla, who has taken such good care of the work and of Jerry. So pleased to have him here today. Bill Hike Jr. is here, the son of William Hike. William Hike was not only a great photographer, right there. William Hike was not only a great photographer, but made several important anthropological films documenting American Indian ceremonies that are now some of the only records that exist. He was a close student of Dorothea Lange, which you can see in his work. I've had the pleasure of working with his son, Bill Jr., a lot over the years, scanning his father's work and creating a book called Father's Day Picnic. Bill worked closely with his father, creating films, including a recent surfing documentary called Secrets of Desert Point, which for surfing people you're going to want to have a look at. Stan Zernick, I don't think has made it here yet, and his daughter Rachel. One of my favorite images in this show is this picture of Stan's wife Barbara's hands in a small gallery. She was a fellow artist, which makes that poetic image of her hands all the more moving. His graceful images of the California coastline are classic and timeless like he is. He still has a working dark room in the basement of his house in San Rafael. And when I first met him 10 years ago, he was still regularly making prints down there. So hopefully we'll see him later today. I also want to thank the Benjamin Chinn estate. Rich Shreve, Yvonne Don, Lenore Chinn, and Adam Chinn have cared for the work of both Benjamin Chinn and Muriel Green and placed the works in the collections of SF MoMA and the Center for Creative Photography in Arizona. They've been incredible stewards of the work and generously loan out to exhibitions. Adam Chinn has also worked closely with Charles Wong, helping with communications, printing his books, and being a great support in general. Charles Wong in the blue jacket right here, and Irene Poon, both artists, bookmakers, and longtime partners. They're both born and raised in Chinatown in San Francisco and have documented that community for years. Irene Poon was a curator of Asian American art at the Chinese Historical Society and instrumental in discovering the work of Asian American artists. And Charles Wong's Year of the Dragon series was featured in one of the first Aperture magazines in 1952. We have some gorgeous works by Charles in the show. Stephen Goldstein, who I think is maybe having a coffee next door, was only 13 years old when he enrolled at the CSFA. So please don't miss the incredible self-portrait he made with Edward Weston in the vitrines there. It's truly incredible. I met Stephen back in early 2005 when I was on a tour of CCA, which is SFAI's competitor school. He told me to meet him after the tour, and he drove me over to SFAI and gave me a private tour there, even though the school was not on my list. I remember he told me he just wanted me to know all the options. He was president at SFAI for several years and has been a huge part of the photo and art community in the Bay Area his whole life. He lives in Imogen Cunningham's old house on Green Street. Yeah. John Upton was a student of Minor White's. I'll cut this a little shorter, and he's not here, but he was a really important educator of photography. He wrote, I don't know if any of you are photography students, but he wrote the seminal photography textbook that a lot of people use if they study photo at the upper levels. And he's got a retrospective opening at Orange Coast College in the next couple days, so he's been really involved with that. And I want to acknowledge Gary Marsh, who generously loaned all the incredible Leonard Zalaskowicz work, whose work you will see in this small gallery. And just a brief story, Gary met Leonard Zalaskowicz in a Red Cross shelter following the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989. Leonard had lost his home and was all alone, and Gary not only took it upon himself to look after him, but after discovering he was an artist, became a steward of the work, took care of it, compiled it, cataloged it, and held on to it, loaned it up to museums and shows. So the reason we have Leonard's work with us today is because of Gary's efforts. So other lenders, Jeff Gunderson from SFAI, he's going to be doing a talk here on February 22nd, really giving more of a history of the school and getting into the details of that. He's kind of SFAI's resident historian, he's the librarian there. And so please don't miss that event on the 22nd. Paul Hertzman and Susan Hertzig. And I also want to shout out to Stephen Kirkaby. He is the reason I became involved with this work 10 years ago when he mounted a beautiful and comprehensive exhibition of the Golden Decade at his gallery, Smith Anderson North. He supported the work through gallery sales and numerous art fairs and pushed Ken and Victoria to finish their first Golden Decade book in 2010. And unfortunately, he can't be here today. He's in China. And back to the museum, last but not least, Jennifer Gately, the museum's director, is on a well-deserved sabbatical. But when I met her a year and a half ago, she immediately expressed interest when I told her about the Golden Decade. And 15 months later, here we are. So thank you to Jennifer for believing in the show and understanding what a great fit it would be for the museum. In her absence, I've had the enormous pleasure of working with Kirsten Lightower, who is brand new to the museum and has done such an incredible job. And Keith Evans, who helped hang the show beautifully, and to my husband Charlie, who spent several hours helping me lay out the big wall in the main gallery. Couldn't have done it without him. So I think that's it. Thank you for bearing with me for all of that. That was a lot.